Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome back to Learn to Read Quran. So today we're going to do another new concept. So you can see this is happening pretty much every lesson unless we do a practice page of words, that we are doing a new concept with every class. So please, if you feel like you need some revision, please do go back over the other classes, over the other videos, as many times as you need. There is no shame in that, because the more you practice, the stronger your learning will be. So today we are going to do this concept. It's called the Hamzatul Wasl. Again, this is the transliteration of some words in Arabic, and it basically means a connecting hamza. So there's the word hamza. You might recognize that. So this is a connecting hamza, and what it actually looks like is this. If you have a look here on line 1 where I'm outlining, so it's basically an alif with this shape on top. Now that actually is the connecting hamza. And what does that mean? Well, we are going to find out. It means that when we see one of these, it is an indication that we need to join up to something. So if you look at line 1, here we start with a ba with a kasra, which we know is a b. Then we have this crazy thing called a hamzatul wasl, and next to it we have a letter with a sukoon. So that's what we're looking out for, because the hamzatul wasl is a thing that indicates to us that we are going to be joining up to something. So here the ba with the kasra will join up to the lam with the sukoon. Bil. That wasn't too painful, was it? That was okay. Then we've got a ba with a fatha and an alif. That gives us the 2-count stretch. So that's ba ti li. So the whole thing becomes bil ba ti li. Okay, let's move on. We've got a fa with a fatha, and then we have the hamzatul wasl. Spot that, which means that we are going to have to be joining up to something. So if we're going to join up to something, we need to look out for one of two things. We need to look out either for a letter with a sukoon, because that's all we can join up to, or by extension, we look out for a letter with a shadda, because we know from our lesson on shadda that shadda actually means it's a double letter and the first one has a sukoon. So sukoon is the only way that you can join up from one sound to another, from one letter to another in Arabic. So this hamzatul wasl is indicating that there will be a letter with a sukoon coming after it, or a letter with a shadda coming after it, that we must join up to. So here, back to our word here in the middle of line 1, we have faq. Now the qaf here has a sukoon, and we know from our lesson with the whole lesson about sukoon, that there are 5 letters that when they have a sukoon on them, you need to bounce the noise back, and qaf is one of those qalqala letters. So faq tu lu. Hopefully everyone spotted that 4-count stretch. And you might think to yourself, well, hang on, what is this alif sat there with the circle on? I think we have met that before, but just in case you need a refresher on this, any letter with this little sukoon, or this little circle, I shouldn't say sukoon, sorry, I'll rephrase that. Any letter with that circle on it, you miss it out. It's to do with the grammar of the language. Don't worry about it. Anytime you see a letter with that circle on, you're going to miss it out. Okay, so we have in the whole of that word, in the middle example, faqtu lu with the 4-count stretch. Okay, let's move on. Again, a fa with a fatha, the hamzatul wasl, notice that. That means we're going to find a letter after it with a sukoon or a shadda. Here we have a letter with a sukoon. That's the whole line is like this, where the letter after it is with a sukoon. So we have faf, a fa joining to a fa. And remember what we were chanting every day? Any letter with sukoon gets a bit more time. So this is a fa with a sukoon. It gets that little bit more time because fa is a letter which has noise and it has sound. Sorry, noise is sound, isn't it? Noise and breath running through it. So fef, lu with a 2-count stretch. And here again we see this alif with the circle, so we know we're not going to pronounce that. Okay, let's move on. Line 2. Now this is a bit tricky. We're starting with a Hamzatul Wasl. Now this is where you need to get out a pen and paper, because you will be having to make some notes about this. There are rules to do with the pronunciation of how you read something that starts with a Hamzatul Wasl. And so this is rule number 1. If a Hamzatul Wasl, and here we have a Hamzatul Wasl, is followed by a letter lam, the letter lam, if that is the case, then we imagine the Hamzatul Wasl to have turned into a proper Hamza with a fatha on top. Sounds very random to anyone who doesn't know any Arabic at all, but I promise you it's not random. This is part of the Arabic language. So here this Hamzatul Wasl is followed by a lam. Here we notice the lam. So we imagine this is a actual Hamza with a fatha, with an a noise. So now this becomes al ham do. You might recognize that word. Al ham do. Okay. So this whole line. This whole line is about starting with a Hamzatul Wasl. What do? We look at the next letter. Is the next letter a lam? Excellent, because then we know what to do. So here we have that again in the middle example. A Hamzatul Wasl followed by a lam. So you imagine that this becomes a true proper Hamza with a fatha. Al ki ta bu. Here again we have a Hamzatul Wasl, and we've got to start on it. Now, why do we have to do all this? Because if you look at this Hamzatul Wasl, any of this Hamzatul Wasls on this line, at the beginning of a word, it doesn't carry a vowel. And we know that we can't actually pronounce something that doesn't have a vowel. We don't know how to do that. So that is why all this kind of jiggery-pokery comes in. And here we have to imagine it's a true Hamza, and we start it with an a noise, so it becomes al. Notice the extra long pronunciation of the lam there, because a lam with a shadda means a double lam. Al, the, two stretch, na. So again, I don't think that was too painful. Let's do line 3. Hamzatul Wasl, excellent, it's followed by a lam. Now notice the lam doesn't have anything on it, it has no sukoon, so I'm not actually joining up to that lam, but the mere fact that a Hamzatul Wasl here is followed by the letter lam, I still apply the same rule of turning that into a proper Hamza with a fatha. So I'm not going to join that ah noise of the Hamza with the fatha to the lam, I'm actually going to join it to the ra. Because remember, Hamzatul Wasl means I am going to join up to something. And the something that I'm joining up to must have a sukoon or a shadda. I cannot join up to a letter that has nothing on it, which in this case is this lam. It has nothing on it. So, ra, that's why I'm joining up to that. But look, after that, I have a ha with a sukoon. So the whole thing becomes ar-rah, ma, to stretch, ni. Okay, then let's have a look. We have a Hamzatul Wasl followed by a lam. Lam doesn't have anything written on it. That's the examples on this line, line 3, where the lam has nothing on, no vowel, no sukoon, nothing. We can't use it because it has no way of pronouncing it. But the mere fact that it's sat there after the Hamzatul Wasl means that we can apply this rule of turning the Hamzatul Wasl into an imaginary actual Hamza with a fatha. So, as, la, to stretch, ta. Now let's just have a quick look at what's going on here. We've got a two stretch from the lam because it has a fatha and an alif. The alif is the important thing. That's the thing that's giving the 2 count stretch to the fatha. The waw that's underneath the alif is just a carrier, so does not get pronounced in this word. Okay, let's carry on. Hamzatul Wasl followed by lam with nothing on. We know the drill now, so we turn this into a hamza with a fatha. And see. So what was special about this word? Let's just have another closer look just to make sure we don't miss out any of the important points. The noon had a shadda, which means I hold the ghunna when I get there. Also, the fatha was followed by an alif, so I've got a 2-count stretch. Last example on this line, I'm pretty sure you can do this by yourselves now, but let me just go through it with you. So we have a hamza, well, hamzatul wasl, which I'm changing to a hamza with a fatha because I noticed there was a lam after it. Assa, ma, 4 stretch. E. The 4 stretch is here because of that mad. Okay. Are you ready? We're moving on. Line 4. Hamzatul wasl starting at the beginning. We're not scared. Oh, but maybe we should be because look, the next letter is not a lam. Uh-oh. That means I cannot apply this rule to it. I cannot apply the rule of starting with a hamza with a fatha on. What am I going to do? Never fear, I'm about to tell you. So, it's a bit like a mathematical equation, but don't worry if you don't like maths, it's not that mathsy. You start with a hamzatul wasl, you must know how to start. There is no vowel, you must give it a vowel. Yes, you turn it into an actual hamza, but what vowel will that take? Well, you look at the third letter. Hamzatul wasl is the first letter. Okay, so this is, oh, you know what? Let's use red. This is letter 1, this is letter 2, and this is letter 3. Okay, so look at the third letter, and if the third letter has a fatha, which it does, and all of them do on this line, because you can guess I'm putting all like examples on one line, then if you have the third letter with a fatha, then this hamza at the beginning, oh dear, it's not going to be what you think, because it's actually going to be a kasra. You're going to start with a kasra, an E noise. And I'll tell you why, because if you think of it this way, you've already used the option of fatha on this scenario when the hamzatul wasl is followed by a lam. You can't use that vowel again. It's only for when the hamzatul wasl is followed by a lam do you get to use the fatha. So what other line vowel can you use? Well, you can use a kasra. The fatha is a line, the kasra is a line, so we're going to use that. Now that's not the true Arabic reasoning behind it. I'm just trying to make it a little bit easier for you to find some sort of tricks to remember what you're going to do. So the third letter was the ta with a fatha, so I will start with a kasra. Is, ta, wa. This is the 4 stretch. Why do we get a 4 stretch? Because the waw has a fatha, has an alif with the mad sign. What's the ya doing there? It's just the carrier, so you're not going to pronounce it. Okay, let's move on. This next one is really tricky, so please, if you need to go make a cup of coffee, you need that extra caffeine hit or whatever you need, get it now because this is a little bit trickier. It's still the idea of a hamzatul wasl that you need to start with, so you need to find the vowel, you need to think of what the vowel is going to be, but where's the third letter? Well, the first letter is the hamzatul wasl, that's not a problem. The second letter, you might say to yourself, is the ta, and the third one is the kha, but actually the ta has a shadda, which means we have 2 tas in there. So the first ta with the sukoon is letter 2. The third ta with the fatha is also in that shadda mix and is letter 3, and that has the fatha on it. And we now know that if we have a hamzatul wasl not followed by a lam and the third letter has a fatha, then we're going to turn this into a hamza with a kasra on it. So it. Notice the extra time I gave for the ta with the shadda. It. Kha. Dhu. 2-count stretch. Okay, this one I admit is a bit tricky. So by all means, rewind on this video just for that little bit so you can hear me explaining that again. But I'm going to carry on. So we're on this last example on line 4, which is going to feel very easy after that middle example on line 4. Hamzatul Wasl, we have no lam after it, so we cannot start with fatha. What are we going to start with, everybody? Yes, I know you know the answer already. Letter 3 is this one with the fatha, the ta with the fatha, so a hamza with a kasra. Is, tas, qa, 2 stretch. The qaf with the alif gave us the 2 stretch. Line 5, everybody. Okay, this is a little bit easier. We have a hamzatul wasl. Okay, the next letter isn't lam. We cannot use the fatha. The third letter, 1, 2, 3, the third letter is a letter ba with a kasra. So this is a little bit easier to remember. If the third letter has a kasra, you don't do anything really spectacular. You start with a kasra. So it becomes a true hamza. Why do I say true hamza? Because you must pronounce it properly as a hamza, yes? That sharp hamza noise. Eh, bi, bu, 2 stretch. Hamzatul wasl. The next letter is not lam. What's my third letter? It's the sad with the kasra. So I start as if I have a hamza with a kasra. Iqa, sid. That was a great one for practicing the qalqala letters because you've got qaf and sad there. Sorry, qaf and dal there, and those are 2 qalqala letters, aren't they? So iqa, sid. Excellent. So let's move on. You know how it goes now. Hamzatul wasl, change it into a true hamza when you start on it. Third letter has a kasra. I'm going to start with a kasra. I, di, na, 2-count stretch. And the last example, I'm sure you could do this one now in your sleep. So we have hamza with kasra because the third letter had a kasra. Ib, ti, gha, a. So there was our 4-count stretch. We are now moving on to line 6. We have a hamzatul wasl. We know that we need to find out the vowel on it. And we know that it's going to start with a true hamza. We look at the third letter, 1. Oops, we can't do that if I don't have my pen on. 1, 2, 3. The third letter has a damma. So this is pretty simple. You're going to start with a hamza with a damma. Yeah, so this is a matching vowel. We match the fact that the third letter has a damma and we read the hamza with a damma. So us, ju, do, 2-count stretch. And this whole line are examples of the same. So we need to turn this to a hamza. The third letter has a damma. We start with a damma. Us, kun. Then we have udh, ku, ru, 2 stretch. We have to turn that to a hamza with a damma. Ud, u. Okay, so that was basically a lesson on how do you start with hamzatul wasl, and those were really the examples from line 2 to 6. On line 1, we saw that when we do see a hamzatul wasl but we're not starting on it, we ignore it, but we remember the fact that actually it's pointing to us to tell us that we will find a letter with a sukoon or a letter with a shadda after it. So these are all rules of Hamzatul Wasl. How you deal with the Hamzatul Wasl when you come across it in the middle of a word, well, you ignore it. But when you start on it, you have to know how to start on it. And what I mean by that is you have to know that you will turn it into the sound of a true Hamza, and you have to figure out what vowel you have on it. Lines 2 and 3 are all about the fact that when the Hamzatul Wasl is followed by the lam, you start with a fatha. That's the only time you use the fatha, when the Hamzatul Wasl is followed by a lam. Line 3 showed you, line 4, get my numbers right, line 4, 5, and 6 showed you the method that you use to figure out the vowel that you start with when you turn that Hamzatul Wasl into a true Hamza by looking at the third letter and seeing what vowel is on that third vowel. If the third letter has a vowel that is a fatha or a kasra, you start with the kasra, with the e noise. If the third letter has a vowel of a damma, then you start the hamza with the damma, u noise. Okay, I wanted to do that quick recap before we move on to this final line. What a humdinger! So look at this. We've got a full line here that we're going to read. Don't be scared, don't run away. You can do this. Remember, when you see a full line of writing like that, don't start getting wobbly knees. Just sit there and say, I'm going to do this one letter at a time. And when you do that, Bismillah, you will manage it. So we have fa, to stretch, because we had the hamza with the fatha and an alif. T. Now a dhal with a fatha. Look along, people. See that Hamzatul Wasl? Well, I can't read this alif. It has nothing on it. I need the Hamzatul Wasl really, literally makes me join up to the next word. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go from the dhal all the way to the lam. Dhal. Qur. Ba. To stretch. Haqqa. Hu. To stretch. Hopefully you also that little wow. It's not a comma. There are no commas in the Quran. This is the wow after the ha with the damma to give you a 2-count stretch. A wow with a Hamzatul Wasl next to it. Quickly look. Yes, I have a letter to join up to. Well. Miss. Ki. To stretch. Na. A wow with a Hamzatul Wasl. Do I have a letter with a sukun? Yes, I do. I will always have a letter with a sukun or a shadda after it. It is a ba. Wab. Because the ba is a qalqa letter. Na. But after the na, I have a Hamzatul Wasl. Is there a letter with a sukun? No, but look, there's a letter with a shadda. Granted, there's a lam, but it has nothing on it, so I can't do anything with that. I can't join to it. So the noon jumps up and joins to the scene. Nas. Be. To stretch. Li. Oh my goodness, see how easy that was. I'm going to read it through again. I'm going to leave the markings on here so you can see how all this is working, but please follow it along. I will go as slowly as I can so that you can recite along with me. Fa, ti, ذل, قر, ba, حق, hu, wal, mis, ki, na, wab, nas, bi, li. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well done. This is not an easy concept, perhaps for some, but I think if you practice, you know what I'm going to say. Practice is the name of the game, everybody. Keep on practicing. You are doing excellently. You have got so far already. Well done. And inshallah, I'll see you all again the next time. Assalamu alaikum.